Welcome to Psychology of Pilgrimage. In this episode, I am joined by Éric LaLiberté, who is a researcher in pilgrimage studies at Laval University, where he is also the founding coordinator of the Quebec Network for Pilgrimage Studies. Éric, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me today about pilgrimages and being a pilgrim and pilgrimages in Quebec. And I'd love to hear who you are, and how did you become interested in pilgrimages?
Okay. First, I just want to apologize to the people who are listening to us because English is not my first language. I will do my best.
I think it sounds
um,
fantastic, and it would be far
Thank you.
better than if we were speaking French and people were listening to my French because it would be a disaster.
Good. Well, I can say pilgrimage came into my life in the 90s. It was at that time, pilgrimages were on the Camino of Santiago de Compostela. They were getting more and more popular. And we started to hear about it. And the first people from Quebec who were walking on the Camino, it's about 1995, I think. The first one was walking on the Camino, and I started listening to those stories at that time. But before that, I can say when I was at the end of my teenage, beginning 20s, I was already a backpackers. And I think backpackers and pilgrimage like on the Camino, they're similar. We are looking for the same thing. I think there's something calling us from the inside to walk on those and discover those countries. Mhm. So it started at that time in the 80s, 90s. I started the interest get interest, but after at the beginning of the 2010, it was getting more about the research, and my research was more about getting more attentive to the experience, because it's always been that I had in mind. It's the experience we are living when we are doing those pilgrimage. It's not about the places, it's about the experience for me. It's my researchers are working in that space. Mhm.
And you're approaching this topic of pilgrimages from a theological perspective. Can you say more about that and why I mean, I suppose the theological perspective has always existed in
Mhm.
some form or another, depending on the theologian and the background and the tradition and practices that inform the theological approach. And I'd love to hear more about how you were drawn to pilgrimages through this lens of theology, or maybe even how you were drawn to theology because of pilgrimage.
First, I think I'm interested in what pilgrimage does to people, the experience, like I was saying. And in theology, I'm not approaching it but theology was not really there to study pilgrimage, you know. There's more anthropologists, sociologists who are studying pilgrimage at first. And actually, we're not so much studying the experience from that point of view, and in theology or the spiritual experience we are having on pilgrimage. And that was that's what interests me into the pilgrimages. If What I can say about the theology is, when people are going on pilgrimage and everything for me is into language. The experience is through language. That's what is important for me. You can't get close to the experience if you're not listening to people on the way they're saying things. And in theology, I'm listening how they are saying what they are saying from that point of view. And when someone, for example, on the Camino, tell me something told me to enter that albergue. That something means something. It's not insignificant. There's something talking among the self. Something. That person, she's telling something. She's listening to something else, and into that part, we are entering that sphere of theology where the transcendent is talking. I'm not a theologian who's working from even if I'm Catholic, I'm not working from a dogmatic point of view or from a structure in particular. I want to listen to those experience, and when they are talking, it's like um, in a phenomenological approach. I can say that I want to listen to those movements. It's like the spirit moving the people. And I want to listen to those movements. And into those movements, it's like I'm referring to a basic kinematics observing. The basic of kinematics is when you want to observe a movement, you have to refer to something. Movement is possible to observe movement only because there's something next to it. Like you won't see the wind, but you'll see the leaf moving. So the leaf is not the wind, but she's telling it's telling there's something happening, and I'm listening to those things into the language when we are seeing movements happening, and into language it can be. Something that the people are saying, the person will stop when she's talking about and correct herself because taking another direction into their narratives. There's something happening always. It can be the voice is getting short. Sanglot. I don't know the word in English. If you know, yeah, there's something into the throat, caught into the throat. They stop talking or what. There's something happening. So those signs are telling something is going on, and I'm curious about those things because they're talking about the movement. For me, the movement of pilgrimage happens through language. And that's why I'm talking about the pilgrim enunciation. The enunciation is about the subject, his experience, and the narrative. And all together, when they are building something, and from there, the pilgrimage is appearing, is showing itself. It's not like I was saying about the place or about a specific path to walk. No, it's when you're recounting it. When you are recounting your pilgrimage, the experience is revealing itself there.
I'm fascinated by exactly the same phenomenon, although we use, I think, slightly different language. I'm approaching this from a psychological standpoint, you
Mm-hmm.
from a theological standpoint. But I agree with you completely that the narrating of the pilgrimage, it almost doesn't exist in the same way without the narrating. That it's the narration as a noun is important, but the narrating as a verb is also critical because it's bringing that experience into the present to make meaning and to create a comprehensive framework around what was experienced by the pilgrim. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yes, I like the way you're making the distinction between the narrative and narrating. I think narrating is a path in itself, and we have to follow those paths because when the people are narrating their story of pilgrimage, they're not only talking about the travel they made, they are mixing up different part of their history to build meaning through this, and there's a new path appearing there, and this is where the pilgrim experience appear.
Yes, you're right, because it's not a linear sequence. When one is narrating about the experience, it's it's also about all the past history. It's about past pain. It's about hope. It's about this idea of maybe redemption. It's also about the other pilgrims that someone meets along the way. And so the narratives are not linear, and oftentimes I love hearing pilgrims tell me their stories for the first time, because often they say, "Oh yes, and I need to tell you about this other part too, because it doesn't make sense if
Exactly.
I don't talk about my childhood, or I don't talk about, some type of career change, because that is part of the pilgrimage also." So the language, yeah, that's super interesting what you're talking about. What other types of words or language do you have around this process or experience of a pilgrim narrating? You talked about the kind of the sound, or the stop in the throat, that's part of the during the process of narrating. What else do you see with
I have
pilgrim?
that example I'm always citing because it's really uh, it's telling a lot. There was a woman; she was on the Camino because she was going through. She lost her baby uh, 1 week before giving birth, and there was nothing telling that was coming. There was Everything was going well, and she lost her baby 1 week before, and she was on the Camino to go through that grief. And when she was there, she told me the uh, the walk uh, the walk saved me from that big depression. And when she's saying the walk, she's not saying walking saved me. She's saying the walk, and by saying the walk, she's putting it like outside of us. It's something else helping her. The walk save me. So the walk can almost be written with a big W. It's
Mm,
a the walk is it's more than just walking. The walk is walking her through that grief, and she's getting something through that experience. So into those things, that kind of telling, the people are saying something more than just, if we don't take care to those little details, we are missing something, because she's saying more than just go walk and you'll get better if you're living that kind of experience. No, it's more than that. The walk saved me. So and some things save her. It's the other thing. It's she's not saying only walking helped me to get better. It saved her. So there's something about salvation also through this, the way that she's saying it. So you know that's the kind of thing I'm looking for into the language. Some Another time, a guy was telling. He was trying to get with the group because he was walking very fast on the Camino, and he was walking maybe 45 kilometers a day, something. Yes, and he was telling me, I'm never with the same group. You are living, you are following the same group every day, and so you can get to know each other, talk about what you are experiencing. I'm not, and he was saying, I'm not living that kind of experience. So he was trying to walk slower to be with the same group every day, but finally, he was not feeling well like that, and his pace was coming back, and he was still walking. And he finally said, he tell me, he told me, the I found my pace, and I found my, and he stopped himself, and he said, it's it's the pace, and he said the pace instead of my pace. And there's a big difference by saying it that way, because he was saying it was the pace was can I say that, rhythming it
Yes.
himself.
Yes.
So he was founding his pace through something else that was rhythming
Yes.
his way of walking.
He was changing because it was almost like the pace was something outside of himself that all the pilgrims were aligning to.
Hmm. Yes, and he was trying to align with all other people and find that for himself it was
Mm,
better not.
yes. Have you found in your research that pilgrims often talk about this theme of home or homecoming? That this has always struck me as something quite interesting, that people are away from home, and yet during the pilgrimage, they feel at home. They feel at home through their family, a Camino family, or in other pilgrimages, the connection that is quite close with other pilgrims that feels like a family, or they feel that they are being brought into local hosts or an albergue or a some type of shelter, or eating a meal with local people who are at the pilgrimage site. That feels like a homecoming, and that has always struck me as a prominent theme when I'm speaking to people. Almost in 100% of the cases, pilgrims are sharing about this sense of home or homecoming that they feel or experience.
Yes, many people are saying that they feel at home. They feel, but more than just feeling at home. Yeah, I think it's the first feeling they are putting words on it. But it's more being their self. They
Yes.
feel that they can be true with the other people on the Camino, and this is very important because finding a safe place, and that's why a few years ago, I was talking about that with Douglas Challenger. You know, maybe you know him, and he was. We were talking about that the sanctuary. You know, it's a
Yes.
destination, but he wrote something about that, Douglas, and the sanctuary appears on the Camino to be on the Camino. Being there is being because sanctuary is a place to feel safe,
Mhm.
and people are feeling safe to be on the Camino. So it's really important that we can see that something is moving. Not only the reference are moving because the
Mhm.
sanctuary used to be at the end. And now we can see by the experience that no, it's into the experience because it's offering something where we can feel like they're saying, at home.
Mhm.
When I'm feeling at home, I'm feeling well. I'm not scared of anything. This is a good thing because the Camino offers something to it. It opens our eyes about what's sometimes going wrong into our life. There was a man it was a documentary who has been done here in Quebec, and there was a man saying, "Don't ask me why. When I'm on the Camino, I'm happy. Don't ask me why." And just that way of saying is very interesting because don't ask me why on the Camino I'm happy. When he's saying on the Camino I'm happy, it means that somewhere else he is not.
Mm.
And don't ask me why. It just don't want to talk about it because it will mean to talk about what's not going well in his life.
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate you adding into this idea of home, this feeling of home, this experience of home, that it's very much about returning home to ourselves. And this is an important concept that I'm just beginning to explore. Actually, have been talking about it in one of my classes around the what it feels like to come home to ourselves, to oneself, I think is really what also therapy and mental health counseling is all about, is being able to come home to the self. But pilgrims are finding this through their experience on a pilgrimage, which is sort of mirrors the therapeutic process in a formal psychological sense, and the dynamic that happens through therapy. So yes, there is this sense of coming home. I'm wondering about your thoughts around other pilgrimages. Your work has been focused on the Camino, and do you also explore the experiences of other types of pilgrims? And do you see similar narratives and similar themes with other pilgrims?
Yes, now for my dissertation, for my PhD thesis, it was about the Camino. But now I'm really more interested in all those different kinds of pilgrimage, because yes, we can see similarities between. I think if you remember that book about Wild with Cheryl Strait,
Yes.
and for me, it's a pilgrimage. Like I was saying, Jack Kerouac, On the Road, it's a pilgrimage for me. And all those books are telling about pilgrimage. Even The Wizard of Oz is his pilgrimage. No, but there's something through those movements trying to tell something, and it is what it's important to listen to, what they are trying to see through those movements when they are recounting it. Because but even you're not it's not there's no need to walk or to travel to go on pilgrimage, because you can also just read a book, watch a movie, and it will move you. When you are listening to a movie and start to laugh or cry, or you get angry because of what's happening into the movie, you are moved inside, and it makes you reflect about something, and you will build, probably you have the possibility to build new meanings through that experience. If you're doing you For me, you are on a pilgrim experience when you are doing this. And this yes and there's so many ways we can see pilgrimage now. Where is the pilgrim experience like I was saying, is not about the place, but it's about those movement. It's how we are moved through to an experience, but an experience of encounter. There's always an encounter. If you are moved, like I was saying, it's the basic of kinematics. You need a referent, so there's always an encounter. It's because you have met someone. You have met. It might be a book, a movie, or anything else. It can be music. But it's always an encounter. You are experiencing something because you are confronted to alterity.
It also seems that when I have a sense that all of humanity is connected, and that a part of us is reflected in another person or vice versa. And so the encounter is with another, but it's also with a part of ourselves that we may not fully know yet, or we may be hiding from. And so I think this encounter, there's a duality in the encounter, because it's external, but it's also an encounter with ourselves.
Yeah, but the encounter is reflecting something from
Yes.
inside of us, and but it's I can say it's a grace to there was Jean-Paul Sartre who used to say others are hell.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm saying it in French. He was saying l'enfer c'est les autres. But in pilgrimage, I'm telling people, no, the other is a grace into my life, because it utters that other authorize me to see something about myself. I can explore myself because he is there or she is there, whatever is in front of me, confronting me. Because without the other, I can get to know myself if I'm alone. It's only through those encounters that I can get to know myself and know the other and celebrate those differences that are in between.
Mm. Yeah, I've encountered a few people over the years who prefer to go on a pilgrimage alone and not interact with other people. And I wonder about this. I wonder about how they are missing a part of the experience because of only encountering the self.
I think the first, it can be true that you are going alone, and there's always something dif- uh, like I was saying, it if it's not a person, it will be something else. There's always something. We're always confronted to something different from us in a different manners. So it's not true. You can go on the Camino and say, "I will be alone and not interact with other people." There's always something, and I think it's if they don't want, they are really missing something. If they're not listening to those movements that are provoked by those encounters, when peu importe whatever manners they will happen, but they we have to. When we are walking, we need to take care to listen to those things that are immove, moving us, because this is where the pilgrimage happens. Otherwise, it's only traveling, you know. And it can be, it's okay, it's okay. Sometimes you need just don't take account of all those things. But if you want, if you are in a process and you feel your life needs something else, listen to those movements
Mhm.
inside of you. Mm.
I I do think there is a significant place for discomfort. That discomfort is inherently part of a pilgrimage. There's an educational theorist that I really respect, Jack Mesereau. You may be familiar with his work, or at least have read others who are writing about his work. He developed transformative learning theory, and so it's a series of steps that he has outlined, and it's looking at actually learning and education as this transformative experience, but it very much applies to pilgrimage. The learning part is there, but also just the inner transformation, I think, is there also. And Mesereau highlights the role of discomfort in transformative or transformational learning, and I agree with this. I do think that discomfort is so integral to the inner confrontation, and seeing ourselves in a different way, and that's really what transformation is about. And so when people wanna go solo and they don't wanna talk to people and they don't wanna interact and they don't want to be uncomfortable, I think they're missing the point.
Mm. Yeah, the discomfort is very important in the pilgrimage experience, because it's where it's moving. When there's no discomfort, there's no meeting, there's no encounter happening.
Yeah.
It's when there's an encounter, there's a discomfort, and it's always a signal. You have to listen. Suffering into pilgrimage is not suffering for suffering. It's telling you something, so do something. When it's like with the blisters. When someone comes to me with a big blister, I'm telling him, What are you doing in your life when it's suffering? Are you waiting that long before doing something? Because people and it's time to reflect on that. How are we supporting things? How are we not taking care of? Because we're just telling ourselves it will go, it will pass, it will. No, when you have a signal, do something about it.
Yes. You are you have been a researcher. Are you also teaching at the University of Laval?
Yes, it is
Teaching
not
and
directly. I'm teaching into the master. I was. It's a master program into spiritual accompaniment
okay,
with the Manresa Spiritual Center of Quebec City.
okay.
It's based on the approach of Saint
Mhm.
Ignatius of
Yes.
Loyola, if I- and I've been teaching there for 7 or 8 years now. Mm.
So you have
And
this one side of teaching Ignatian spirituality, and then you're researching pilgrimages and pilgrim narratives and movement. And it seems like all of these have kind of come together um, to
you know,
inform. Yeah, please.
yeah, no, but because why I'm working with the spiritual, the Ignatian spirituality, it's because Ignatius calls himself the pilgrim into his
Mhm.
story, into
Yes.
his biography. He talks about him like a pilgrim, and that's why. And when I read the exercise he put up, he puts up, I found because I was already interested into the experience at first before I began my researches, and I wrote about it, and there was all those states we were going through while we were walking
Mhm.
through all the experience, and Ignatius developed the exercise into 4 weeks, and those weeks were almost exactly the same 4 times I was seeing into the pilgrim into a pilgrimage. So that's why I was getting interested into his work, and I began to work through that experience. And right now I'm working exactly on a I'm teaching, but I'm also building a new courses, a new how can I say
Network.
that? It's a new, no, it's not a network. It's a new program uh, for this learning discernment. Okay.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
we are developing a
Great.
new program and really inspired by the pilgrim
Mhm.
experience linked with the Ignatian spirituality.
So what will that look like? People who are is this a sort of a discernment period for people who are looking at pursuing a religious vocation, or is this open for anyone who would like more discernment about their life or their calling overall?
It's for everybody. It's not specifically for a religious discernment. It used to be at one time, but I think, but many years ago. But actually, we are working more on uh, offering the experience of discernment for everybody in everyday life. They can use it as a tool, just a way of listening, because really it's really a way of listening all on those movements we are experiencing inside of us. How is it moving, and to which I'm listening, to which movement I'm listening. Am I listening to my education, my history, my culture, my family, whatever? What is it, and what is? And there's one. Ignatius was saying, "There's three voices inside of me: my family." my ego, and there's God talking, and I have to find which which of those voices are talking, and discernment is about that, listening to those voices. And that's why in theologically, when I'm listening to people who are talking about their experience in pilgrimage, when someone's saying the walk saved me, or is saying the pace, like I was saying, uh, it's something's telling a little bit. It's not exactly that, but we can feel that there's something else being told through those and where we have to listen more carefully, because it's not the people are, when the people are moved, it's not it's like the leaf. She's not moved. When I was giving you the example of the leaf with the wind,
Yes.
she's not moving itself. She's been moved by the wind. And it's the same when we are listening to those people who are talking about their experience. There's something coming from somewhere else, moving them, and and they find their self into that movement.
This is probably very off the topic of pilgrimages, but it is about the three voices that I'm curious, because you talked about family and ego and God. And I'm wondering if you have ever considered if there's another voice that is trauma or traumatic events that people have experienced. Of course, I'm coming at this question from a psychological standpoint, and it seems to me that often there's this other voice that is speaking to people.
Yes, when I was telling that there was three voices, it was what Ignatius was saying. But I think probably you can add that fourth voice in when Ignatius was saying the family, the culture. It's all into that part. I think there will
That
be
makes
a
sense.
part of the trauma will be.
Mhm.
It can be. We can split that third voice into two voices, and yes, there's a part. Yes, we are, because what we can see, I'm approaching like Ignatius. His experience was of discernment begin with readings. He noticed when he was reading the Bible. He was very he is a knight,
Mhm.
knight
Yes,
chevalier, you know,
yes.
and he was very interested in those stories of knights. And when he was in a battle where his legs were broken, so he was in bed for 1 year, and they brought him books because he was a big reader. So they brought him books, and he started to read the Bible, and he was reading knights stories also. And between those, he was experiencing different movement in between those. So the reading are really important, because we're always reading, and we're reading in at every moment. Actually, we are reading each other's. You when you're watching me, you are listening. Your listening is a reading of what I'm seeing, and through this we are making interpretations. And this is what it is important. When I'm interpreting from my history. And so that the trauma you were talking about will color my way of interpreting. You will see something into a movement into my face, and maybe because of your history, you will interpret that movement from one point of view that another person will not say. It was not really, I don't feel that way about what he was expressing. So, when we are always reading, and our history is really important to take account of, because it's coloring our way of interpreting. And it's in pilgrimage, we have a, when we are taking people on pilgrim experience, we are telling them, you will read the way we are walking, you will read it, and there will happen things unto that way, and they will those things you will interpret them, and they will tell something about yourself. So take account of all those movements that will happen. Like when you're reading a book or listening to a movie, all those things are readings that are talking about us. So it's always, again, the encounter between, but through reading, it's always reading. And Ignatius was an inspiration for taking account of those readings, because it was the beginning of discernment. The discernment is always there. And one of his feeling was, sometimes he feels joy and sometimes he feels sad after a reading. And he said, well, the joy is what God wants for me. God want me to be in joy. So I will take care of what the way I'm reading, and what am I reading, and what keeps me in joy.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it also makes sense how you've described um, this Ignatian spirituality with pilgrimages. I completely understand. I think why you are drawn then to developing this program, and you're quite busy because you've also formed a network for pilgrimage studies called the Quebec Network for Pilgrimage Studies, and I really want to explore a bit about that. And what you and the other incorporators are envisioning for this network. Seems that
Yes.
pilgrimage is becoming quite prolific in Quebec, and I think I can understand some of the reasons why, with the links to France and the Catholicism and Catholic identity that sort of forms the basis for Quebec. But I'd love to hear more from you about how this network formed and what you are envisioning for the future of the network.
Yeah, the network began with a friend from our discussions and reflections about pilgrimage. I was working with Michel O'Neill. He's a sociologist
Yes.
from Laval University,
Mhm.
and we were talking together. He was very involved at the time. Now he retired, but he was very involved into the study of recent pilgrimages experiences in Quebec, and those experiences were they weren't. Yeah, we have a special history in Quebec with the church, with the Catholic Church. So and the people were quitting churches massively in the 70s, 80s, and more. And actually, our churches are empty, and so but the pilgrimage is still there. And and he was very interested about the Compostela experience coming over through this. So, and we had many ways of pilgrimage opening up here in Quebec, and many paths. Uh, People are creating paths to walk, and different all those pilgrimage were going on, and but they were always feeling uncomfortable with the word pilgrimage, but the experience is there. So we are keeping the word pilgrimage because it's telling something more than just a hike. We're not only hikers. If it was we were talking about, we would probably be talking about hiking, but we're not only hiking, we're doing something more. There's an experience and people are saying something else. And even in English, in French, we're saying, j'ai fait un Compostelle. When I did a Compostela. In English, I think you can say, I did a Camino, but not specifically walking on the St. James Way. You can be walking a Camino in Shikoku, or you did something else somewhere else into the world. And but using those words, Camino or Compostelle in French, we want to say there's an experience going through this. And into the network, we want to get together all those people talking about those experiences. So we're not only researchers, but we are also practitioners, all talking together about those experiences and trying to build uh, knowledge about those experiences, how they work, how they are meaningful to us. So the network is mostly about that, but also Quebec as um, a special place on the international scene, because we have a unique position between America and Europe,
Hmm.
between English and French world. We are a kind of a link in bit in between. So it helps to build that network and go and make things work all together. So Quebec is not the network is not specifically as want doesn't want to act as a center, but as a passage. It's where something those knowledges can travel and be exchanged.
Hmm. Hey, you're bringing up an interesting point that I hadn't thought about before, in the sense that Quebec is sort of occupying a liminal space, because it's on one hand neither or nor, but also both. And that's an interesting geographical and cultural and historical position uh, to be in. And before we started recording, I was asking about your surname, La Liberté, and I'd love for you to talk about the story. Your own family history in Quebec is fascinating, and certainly tied to my interest in war pilgrimage, in some sense. And so, how did your family end up in Quebec?
Oh, it was many years ago. It's almost 400 years ago we arrived in Quebec. It was in 1665 the first La Liberté arrived in Quebec. And it was with the Régiment Carignan-Salière, who was asked with Jean Talon, who asked the King of France to send a regiment, the regiment. And they were here for the battle between French and English at that time. And so we arrived at that, and in the army, his surname was La Liberté, because they were fighting for liberty. So
Yes.
his surname, it was La Liberté, liberty. And but the name of the family is Cullen, because we are from Britain.
Okay.
And so there's sometimes similar names between Great Britain and Britain. So our
Yes.
name is Colin in French,
Hmm.
and we are from the area of Rennes in France. And so the Saint-Malo,
Yes.
they took the boat from Saint-Malo and came to Quebec by boat, and 1665. And after we went all around, we were in the area of Montreal, then moved up north. And now I'm living in the Quebec City area, because my family is originally from the area of Montreal, but now I'm living into the area of Quebec City. But Quebec has a really it's the entrance of history into North America, for our the stranger we are, because there was already people there. But
Yes.
it's the beginning of our history onto that continent. And the French people and Quebec City are opening up a lot. Quebec City was the first diocese of North America at that time, and it was all North America. Canada and the United States were all one diocese at that time.
Hmm.
And Monseigneur and our university were the name of the first bishop, a very renowned bishop of that time, Monseigneur François de Laval. and he was the bishop, and Laval was his name. So our and they started the university. Laval University is the oldest. It was not a university at that time, but it was the oldest school in North America, almost as old as William and Mary. There,
Interesting. I
on the
didn't know
English
that.
side is William and Mary,
Mhm.
and on the French side is Laval University.
Oh, that's interesting. It's also interesting, in doing, the research over the past several years on soldiers in the First World War. I live in New Hampshire, and there's a large Quebecois population in New Hampshire and all over New England. Uh, but, 5, 10,000 or more, uh soldiers, well, they were living in the US, but they were Quebecois, went back to Canada, to then fight with the Canadians in the First World War, and so the history of New England is very closely tied to the history of Quebec. And so, yeah, it's a fascinating element of New England history that I would like to learn more about.
But I was telling you about Jack Kerouac, and Jack
Yes,
Kerouac is from Quebec. His parents were born in Quebec, and they were not very far from where I live right now, in the on the south shore of Quebec City. But yes, there's a lot of people from Quebec who are now in. But when we go, we have friends in Minnesota's, and Minnesota's. There's many French name over there. Streets
yes.
are wearing French name.
Yes. And even in Wyoming, which is the state where am originally from, many of our place names are French. Also, there's a lot of French history in that state. So, yeah, sometimes I think we forget in the United States how closely our history is linked with with French history.
Yes, yes, we have built this all together. So,
That's right. So what projects beyond what you've already talked about, are you working on? What kind of what is your research focused on at the moment?
right now, like I was saying, my biggest project is to build that new training program on
Mhm.
discernment, inspired by the Ignatian tradition and by pilgrimage experience. So we are linking those two together to put up a new training program into uh, the learning of discernment. But I'm also working on I have a big interest into the alterity of foreignness, because I think it's the crucial point of the pilgrim experience. Like I was saying, the encounter, there's always something happening, but that other the otherness is really important in the experience. So we need to know more about how it works when we are confronted to otherness, and how it can be really, like I say, a grace into our life, instead of be afraid of the other,
Yes.
and uh, get to know each other better, because we are learning a lot from that experience. I think there's Matthew Anderson in Quebec who wrote very that it's I forgot the name of the book, but it's really interesting what he wrote about that, when there's meeting between the First Nations and the through the treaties, and the treaties were a place where we can learn much more about us, and the way it was supposed to work, those treaties between the First Nations and the colonizing people, and into those treaties we have our own identity, each other's, but we know, and it's about recognizing the others into our differences, and from there build something new. I will renounce to some part of me, you will renounce to some part of you, and from that meeting we will build a new identity by that meeting. And that's very important, I think, all over that work. So I think we have a lot to learn about the experience of the alterity through pilgrimage. So I'm working a lot about around the theme. Mm.
It would probably also be helpful for listeners and viewers to hear about the Sacred Journeys Conference, which you are
Yes,
hosting at the
if you open
University
the
of
door.
Yes. Because the abstracts are due soon, and so tell me more about that.
Yes, it will be the first time Sacred Journeys. It's the 13th Sacred Journeys that will be held in the Quebec City next summer in July, from 7th to 10th of July. Where we will have the Sacred Journeys, and it will be the first time in North America. Uh, it's a big, big conference about those sacred journeys, those pilgrimage we are experiencing, and there will be people from all around the world. There's already many people because it's the first time in North America. So people, it used to be in Japan or in Australia or India. It was far. So for the first time here in North America, so many people wants to be there and be part of that meeting, that gathering, and it will be very interesting to attend to the experience, because we have people not only we have first not only the traditional pilgrimages we are listening to, but many traditions of pilgrimage, First Nations pilgrimage, people from Asia talking about their experience, their meanings of pilgrimage. So it's really interesting to go deeper into those meanings of pilgrimage. It's really something. Uh, I think specifically human. Those pilgrimages, it's really specifically part of our humanity. So it's really interesting to see how it evolved through those all the different culture
Mhm.
through the world. So from in July next summer, and it will be very interesting to have you with us. You can send your proposal until February 15th.
So people who are interested in pilgrimages from all over the world are welcome to submit a proposal. Is there a website that people can check out? Is there a Sacred Journeys website?
There's a website. I don't remember the name, but
Well, so people
I can, maybe
can
I can send you the information
okay.
if you
Yeah,
want
I
to
can
add it.
put it up. I can put it up. Proposals, though, can be sent to Eric, to Ian
Yes, they can send
McIntosh.
it to my email, or Jan McIntosh or Chadwick, also.
Okay,
Yeah, we are the
so we
three.
can put some information up at the end of this in case people are interested.
And people can come just to assist, to attend to the symposium. There's no need to present something. You can just
Thank you.
be a
Thank you for that
participant.
reminder also. It's fantastic, very interesting papers, and I can imagine that it will be quite large because it is in North America. It's a bit more easily accessible for North American attendees and for North American presenters.
And Quebec City is a beautiful city to discover.
And who doesn't wanna visit Quebec City? Exactly. I can imagine there'll be some interesting, events after the papers are finished or in the evenings.
Mhm. Yes, there will be a visit between among different things, but there will be a special visit of the old city.
Beautiful.
Because we there's only three cities, in North America. There was walls around, there was in Florida, St. Augustine,
Mhm.
in Charleston, and Quebec City. And I think we are the only one city who still have the wall.
There's so much history to see there for sure, and the cathedral, is quite
Hmm.
remarkable. So that will be, right? There's the
And we
I think
are the
it
oldest sites of pilgrimage in North America, Saint-Anne-de-Beaupré. There
okay.
was many people used from the United States who used to came to Saint-Anne-de-Beaupré in Quebec City.
Yeah, we were talking about Thoreau, right?
Mhm.
Visiting
Yes, yes. Thoreau was visiting the Quebec City in 1850, 51. He was part of the first group of tourists from Boston to came to Quebec City. And they built in memory of him, they built a little house like in Walden.
really? Does it still
Yes.
exist?
Yes, it's among the canyon I told you, because he was very interested in a canyon not very far from Quebec City. It's about 25, 30 kilometers from Quebec City. So when he arrived, he walked to the canyon to see that canyon. And now there's a little house among the canyon.
A little Walden Pond, little
Yes,
Thoreau house. That's That's fascinating. When you told me this before we started recording, it really prompted me to think I wanna go do some research on this trip, because I up to this point, have not read about it, so there probably is a lot about it, I just have never read it before. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about I'm
you're
coming
welcome.
away really attuned to this concept of movements. Movements that happen internally and through expression, linguistic expression. And so you've taught me a lot about movements, and I'm thinking about that as I close the conversation. And the Ignatian spirituality program that you're developing sounds fascinating, and the new Quebec Network for Pilgrimage Studies sounds interesting. All movements, right? These are all movements, and then the Sacred Journeys conference, which hopefully I will see you at in July. And thank you so much for speaking in English.
With pleasure. Thank you.